Good morning. This morning I thought we'd do a little video on basil in pots. So we are in the Denver suburbs, so we're in the High Plains desert. We have two large pots, so large in fact that we don't ever really move them off the porch or anywhere else because they're so big and heavy. And we have been growing basil in these two pots on our west facing back porch for probably about a dozen years or more now, and always in these pots. I know people say you should rotate and whatever, but we haven't. We just always grow basil in these pots. We don't really do much to the soil other than we water it. We might add a little more soil over time, but basil doesn't seem to really need a whole heck of a lot. It can go for a long time without anything. So I think maybe there have been a couple years where we put some vermicompost on it, which is worm poop, which is a good fertilizer. But other than that, we've not really done anything, and I don't think we did anything to them this summer. Now you will notice these look vastly different, right? So we have three things we're looking at here. We have this basil over here, which is about 3 or 4 plants. We have this basil with the purple flowers, which is a different variety of basil. And we have this basil over here in this pot, which is also 3 or 4 plants, which is actually the same variety as this one. I can't remember the name. We always plant the same one. It's like Genesi or something like that. It starts with a G. My husband, as an experiment last summer, planted this variety. Don't ask me the name. It has purple flowers though. We did not plant that this year, but it came up like halfway through the summer, just came up from seed that had fallen in the pot from last year. So I want to talk about why this looks so much different than this. So there are two reasons I think this is the case, and this kind of happens every summer. You will see we have a pole here, and we have a covered porch. And so this plant gets a little more shade from the pole and from the curtains that we keep closed. I'm sorry, my chickens are being so loud. This curtain we close a lot in the summer during the intense heat because it saves on our air conditioning bill. And so I think this gets a little more shade, a little less intense heat. This one gets more heat. Now, in the middle of the summer, they look pretty identical. Like this one looks the same, but this one, I think because of the intense sun that it gets, it tends to go to seed first. And we weren't on it from the get-go. And so you will see the basil starts getting these long flower stalks on top. And once it starts doing these flower stalks, it starts putting its energy into making seed and not into keeping nice, beautiful, healthy, lushy green leaves. And so this plant we have been working on, and you can see it does have some starts of flowers, but we kind of come out every couple days and just try to nip them off of there. And that keeps these leaves nice and green and usable. You could still use that, but it's just not as good. And I haven't done as much with the purple basil, but you know, at some point I will. I just wasn't anticipating having it this summer. What we tend to do is we make pesto. We make a lot of pesto with this, and then I also make tomato sauce with the tomatoes in my garden, and I put some basil in that as well. These were all started, with the exception of the purple, these were all started from seed probably in April and brought out into the pots probably late May, I would guess. They're on a small sprayer irrigation system, so they get a little bit of water every day. I tend to run it for about 3 minutes, which is probably a little much for these pots, but there's a lot of other things on that same line that get water as well. As long as you have holes in the bottom of your pot where the water can drain, then you're not going to get root rot and things are going to be fine. Yeah, once the plants start coming up, they tend to come up in a straight, big, fat stalk that gets really long and gangly. But if while that is still pretty small, you nip it, just pinch it off, take the top part off, eat it, do whatever you want with it, it will start branching and you will get additional stalks. And so you can see here that we have some, you know, we nipped this at some point and it split. And so we continue to do that even now. It's pretty late. is it October 1st? I don't know. It's the end of September. It might be the 1st of October. I'm not exactly sure the date today. But if you look, you know, this is still very, very edible, and we will continue to just lop pieces off and eat it, and we will continue to nip the flowers. You gotta nip those little flower stalks, and then those leaves will stay green for pretty long. And that's what we've got on growing basil in pots. I would also say you don't need pots this big. This is just what we do. They don't need to be nearly that big. You don't need to put 3, 4, 5 plants in a pot. You could just get a smaller plant and do one, and that would be just fine. They also do well. We grow them sometimes in the house in a south-facing window or a west-facing window over the winter, and they do well there too, although eventually the plant will get really root-bound in the pot and will probably either die, or you'll want to bring it out in spring and plant it outside so it can continue to thrive. Yeah, that's it on basil. Hope that was useful to somebody. Take care. Bye-bye.